anything. Remember that.
Don't get to use this?
You gave me money last month.
Oh, now it's official.
Now it's official. All right. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for coming out in this weather. I want to thank Barry again for all his years of dedicated service.
Thank you.
He's not going anyplace, but he doesn't have to stand up here anymore and deal with this stuff. I'd like to welcome at least 2 new members that I'm aware of. Rick Bittler. Rick, do you want to just say a little bit, in like a couple seconds? Have you turned?
I've been just playing around, learning for about a year. So.
Okay. And then Steve Gass, I believe. Welcome.
Yeah, I've just been turning for a couple years.
Okay. All right.
Come and see what you guys are about.
Well, I've been turning for just over 2 years, and it's about a lot of fun and a lot of talented people in this room and on the Zoom and in the club. So welcome, both of you. The bylaws, last month we sent out proposed revisions. Tom sent them out again this month. And then everybody please take a look because we will vote on those proposed changes next month. The dues are increasing. I think we've talked about this from $30 to $35 a year. And we've also added family membership for additional $5 per member within the family, same household, as well as a student membership for $5.
First time he's been president.
Open Shop is being moved from this coming Saturday, the 11th, until the 18th. Primarily because John Kelsey is going to be a celebration at the Museum for Art and Wood this Saturday for John getting an award from the Furniture Society.
That's going to be in Philly?
That's in Philly, right. So Open Shop is on the...
parking down there?
I think there is. Open Shop is going to be on the 18th.
Thousands of parking spots.
Somebody's in them all.
That's where all the people who live and work down there park.
So that is, those are the announcements that I have. We have some more that we can talk about after show and tell. Rick, do you want to do a quick treasurer's report?
Can
Yes.
I, after Rick, can I just?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So before the meeting, we had the bank account had $4,375 in it, $4,375, because a lot of people renewed. We had 69 renewals before today that I had, and plus some that John gave me, and I have a list going. Which left us with 55 people who had not paid their dues for this year yet. Yeah, he knows.
Troublemaker.
So, but I just got the Zoom license, and I know some other stuff's coming due. I think in January, February. I forget when it comes due. The insurance is in something else. Website stuff.
About 45.
Huh?
About $4,500.
Yeah, probably after what I took in tonight, right around 4,500.
Thomas.
I just wanted, AAW sent out something this week that if you're planning on going and you reserve your registration by, I think, the 11th, there's another $25 off, which in addition to the early registration fee. So, if money's tight and you want to make the leap now in the next couple, 3 days or 4 days or whatever is the time to do it, because you'll get another $25 off, which is almost 15% additional or something like that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have show and tell after the demonstration, and I'd like to introduce David Welch from Easy Wood Tools. I think we talked about it in December, and Barry made the initial contact with Easy Wood Tools, and David's agreed to turn a goblet.
Yeah.
So thank you, David. We'll turn this over to you, and then after your demo, we'll have show and tell, and then any other announcements and conversations people would like to have. So
Okay.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my name's David Welch. I've been turning for since 1999. I got into turning because my uncle bought a lathe, and he said, when I come down to Florida, that he would teach me how to use a lathe. And the only thing I had ever seen turned on a lathe was a table leg by, oh shoot, what was his name? The New Yankee Workshop guy. Norm Abrams. And all I could think of was, why would you buy that piece of equipment that expensive? Because I'm not going to make that many tables. And I went down, I turned a bowl, and then several pens, and I was hooked. And within a month, I had my own lathe. And that's how I kind of got started. I started teaching in 2008, and I've been teaching ever since then. And about a year and a half ago, I got hired by Easy Wood Tools to be an ambassador. So I like the term. It just means that I'm authorized to go out and do demos for clubs and turning schools and stuff. So that's what I'm going to do today. You guys contacted me, and you guys wanted to do a goblet. I offered up I could do basically anything. So yesterday, I haven't made a goblet in a while. I went ahead and made one so that I could make sure that I could figure out the whole process and have that set out for you guys today. This one took me about 3 hours to do, so we're going to try to get that done tonight.
So we should
a little
get
bit faster.
comfortable,
Yeah, you should get comfortable, right? So I'll try to go a little bit faster, and I'll go through everything as we go through it. Before we start, I'm going to start talking about Easy Wood Tools. I have some handouts up here, some trifolds, some cards, magnetic rulers, which are nice to put on your lathe so you can quickly grab it and measure things out, and some Easy Wood pencils. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this around. This is a spalted maple.
No, I haven't.
Where is Easy Wood available? Is that online or is it?
You can buy it online. If you go to the website, you can get on their email. They put on their website where places are that are selling it on sale, as well as locations that are having a demo by somebody, so you can actually see.
It's not covered by Woodcraft.
Woodcraft sells Easy Wood Tools.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So does Amazon.
So does Amazon. Yep. But yeah, check their site out because a lot of times they'll tell you who's got 10 or 15% off of their products. So let's kind of go over some of the products. So what Easy Wood Tools are are carbide cutters. Now people say they're scrapers. They're not. They're really a carbide cutter. They cut a lot better than a scraper does. One of the advantages of using this as opposed to traditional turning tools is I don't have to have a sharpening system. This one's got 4 sides on it. When this side dulls out, I take an Allen wrench, and what I did with my Allen wrench that came with it was I turned a little handle for it so that I can find it, because that's pretty daggone small. You basically loosen that up. I take a permanent magic marker, draw across the side that's dull, rotate it 90 degrees, and I just pick up and continue on. When you go back and say that this thing is completely dull, you look at the number on the shank here, and it tells you this one is a CI2. So you look for the CI2, the square one, and you can put that on there. This one's completely square. They come in a kind of a rounded, it's called an R2, which is a 2-inch diameter circle if you were to continue that around. And that allows you to get away from having these sharp corners on the sides if you're trying to kind of mesh things in.
Can you sharpen them by turning them upside down? And
they don't recommend it.
they don't recommend it.
No, they're $15 to $20 to buy them, and like people always ask me, and I'm like, I don't know. It's like anywhere from 20 to 50 volts, depending on where in the tree it's coming from, right? Because like if you're down low in the tree, it picks up a lot of silicate, so that it's going to be harder on your tools than higher up, right? So, and the hardness of the wood also affects how long they last as well. But it's a long time, right? If you have a small shop, right, you have to have a grinder. You have to have an 8-inch slow-speed grinder. Then you have to have the Varigrind system or some other system to kind of like sharpen those tools. So now you're talking about a whole nother expense that's going to end up costing you about $650 to $800 to have a sharpening system. I have very caustic skin for some reason, and whenever I touch steel, it rusts. These are stainless steel, so there's no rusting on these. And then we all know about the who owns the tool, whether you own the tool or the wood owns the tool. If I have that here, it takes a lot of force for me to hold the handle up. Here, the wood has all the control. And the rule of thumb for every tool is 1/5 of the length of the tool is where you have it. they come with a mark on the side of it that tells you like you're getting close to the danger zone, right? So try to get your tool rest in closer. They come in 4 different sizes. They come in should bring that up. They come in with the mini, and then I don't have the large. Pull some of these out. Kind of talk about them. I'll go ahead and pass this one around. That's the one with the square tip on it. This is the smallest one. It has a little bit smaller diameter or width of a cutter head, so it's a little bit less aggressive. They sell 2 types of tools. So this is the round cutter, and this one has a negative rake. So when this comes around to you, if you hold it up and look at it, you'll see that it comes down and goes back, and the carbide is on there. It's a special formula for their carbide, and it's supposed to be the highest grade carbide that you can get, and they've patented the process of putting that on these tips. The negative rake goes a little bit, it is not as aggressive as the square one, so that's the purpose that you might want to kind of use one of those. I'll go ahead and pass both of these. This one's called the detailer. It's got a nice point on it. I use this a lot for when I'm putting my tenons on the bottom of my bowls. I use that to create that dovetail in there. I also use it for, we'll see it on the bottom of the goblet where it kind of comes in, and I burnt a line in there. I started that with this.
That's your negative rate.
This was the first tool that I had purchased from Easy Wood Tools. I bought this because I was doing vases and bowls that have a lip, and this allows me to get up underneath that lip. I had made what they call a Y tool. It comes out and it has an arm that sits out over here, and then the end of this has, remember those old things that you bought for molding to put on your table saws? That I never put it on after I bought it because I was afraid that one of them was going to come flying loose and like throw through my chest. I shaved those down. They had nice shapes on them, and I put them on the end of a tool, and I would use that. Now that's a massive scraper, right? And the problem is that it wants to turn because those pieces hung off the side, right? And so you get this massive amount of torque. By having the Y, that was just a mother bar that came over here that rested on my tool rest, and it would stop a lot of that twisting. But what Easy Wood Tools has done has made this like 1 inch or 1.25 inch shank here, flat on the bottom, and then this is in line with the tool. So there's not a lot of torque where it's wanting to
So that doesn't twist like that?
Nope, because you got this nice flat here, and you're just taking it in and take a nice gentle
As long
cut.
as you stay on the flat.
Oh yeah, you never turn them off the flat. So this is probably one of my favorite tools. It's also part of the hollowing set. I like this one because it has the smallest diameter cutter on it, and that allows me to take light cuts. So the smaller your cutter, the lighter the cut you can take. If you have the larger one, you can actually take more off. The advantage of having the larger one is that it's easier to get rid of the ripples and stuff out of things. So a lot of people think that these are scrapers, and I was one of those people for a long time where I was a tool purist. And but there are several things that these tools do that you can't do as well with a traditional tool. And one of those is making a natural edge bowl. When you're making your natural edge bowl, you get those wings on the ends, and then it sinks down in the middle. So as it's spinning, you're trying to cut air, right? So the tool is bouncing in and out because you're trying to rub that bevel, right? With Easy Wood Tools, you're not trying to rub the bevel. The way you use an Easy Wood tool is you bring that tool in horizontal, and you just move it back and forth. So since I'm not pushing up against that wood trying to ride that bevel, one of my sides of my wing is not thinner than the other. So that's one place that these are superior. The second is if you're going to turn acrylics, these things are by far even better than the skew. They just leave a perfect surface right on it, right off the tool.
So with scrapers to cut, you can tip a skew, for example, or you can, well, skew is usually
Tilted
presented
already.
that way, but scrapers, you'll turn it angled to get a better cut.
Easy Wood Tools does not recommend that.
So they do not,
Right.
because it seems like it's the same thing, just a much smaller thing in contact with the wood.
Yes,
But they don't recommend that.
they don't recommend it, and I'll say they don't recommend it.
Okay.
Yes.
Do these tools come in wider carbide tips
Nope.
than what you see?
Now the widest one is what you're going to see coming around on the ones that are back there. So I'll go ahead and pass this around. Let's see. The other products that they have, if you don't have a chuck system, the Easy Wood chuck is more expensive than other chucks, but it has some major advantages. So I don't have one because I have about $2,000 invested in chucks because I hated changing the jaws on the chucks, right? I went with Nova, right? And all my jaws are interchangeable except for when I get to the larger chucks. But what I ended up doing was go out and buying additional chucks so that I didn't lose the 8 screws. It took me 15 minutes to change the jaws out. With Easy Wood Tools chuck, there's a tool, you just push it in and the jaw pops out. To replace it, you take it and push the jaw back in, it clicks, and you're done. Second advantage of it is the back ring is like your adjustment, your course adjustment. So you just turn it and the jaws open and close, so you're not sitting there going like this for 3 minutes trying to get the jaws in and out, right?
You don't have
So
one here.
I don't. All you do is you like twist it and it gets down close, and then you put a key in and turn it tight and the rest of the way down. So if I had to do it again, right, I would do that. But with my investment I've already, with all the jaws that I have, I would have to get the chuck and then all the jaws. So I'm not going to do that unless anybody wants to buy $2,000 worth of chucks, and I'll upgrade. Let's see. We're going to see this product a little bit later. This is it's called Yorkshire Grit. It's a beeswax, some oils, and a pumice. So the pumice is about 320 grit, but it's a soft pumice. So when you put it on, you wipe it all over the surface. I do it with the lathe off. Then I polish it with the lathe on. What happens is that aggregate that's in there breaks down. And so it ends up being about 1200 grit by the time you finish polishing it. And that's all that's on this. So I sanded this to 320 grit and then polished it with this. Two things happen. One is the oils get into the wood and they make it pop. So you get that immediate satisfaction of seeing all the grain and everything kind of like popping out. Second thing is it makes it feel like glass once you put it on. When I teach, that's one of the things I do. I'm like, okay, so do a pen. I tell them to stand up to 600, right? I'm like, okay, feel that. And now put this on and feel it again. And they're like, oh, wow.
Do you have to spin that to heat it up like you would wax?
No. So you put this on at like 500 RPM. Well, I put it on and then buff it off at like 500 RPM.
Okay.
You can put any finish on this after it's on. And this is food safe, so you can do that. This kind of goes over kind of like all the different cutters that they have, and I'll leave these up here for the club. Here is the chuck. You were kind of asking about that, so you can kind of see about that. They make face plates that go into the chuck, so you can quickly do that if you want. This is really cool. If you're going to do any beading, they have the tip that goes on the Easy Tool Rougher, which is the square ones. Right, you just replace that tip with one of these, and you just push this straight into the wood, and it gives you the bead. So it really saves a lot, especially in beginning turning when you're sitting there with either a detailed gouge or a skew trying to make that perfect So we talked about the Yorkshire grit. They have another one called micro. That is for polishing, like if you were to do a CA finish or you were doing an acrylic pen, that polish takes it up to the next level for finishing, which is super nice. They have drive spurs, and here's the different sets of the hollowing tools that you can kind of get. So you can see the different sizes, and the size that you saw today is that middle one. Channel, and then they have a parting tool, which I have one here today. So the nice thing about their parting tool, so if I were to buy a parting tool and it wasn't to get the easy tool, I would want to get a diamond parting tool. And the reason is the end of it looks like this, right? Where this part is in the center of the cutting, and so there's less friction as you go into the wood. It's not rubbing as much. If you look at the end of this, the carbide tip on this is wider than this just shank here. So you don't have to do that cutting. You're going to see me use this a little bit later today. The other thing, when you're using a parting tool, a standard parting tool, what you're going to do is you're going to bring it up here and get the cut, and then you're going to raise the handle and bring it down. Easy wood tools, just bring it straight in. That's all they want you to do. You don't have to angle it up and turn it down. And speaking of, I've told you that you only have to keep these things horizontal. That's the way you cut with those. To do the inside of a bowl, pretend I have a tool rest here. I bring my tool in like this. I get it cutting. As soon as I get a little bit of an edge, I rotate that over and lower the handle down. I push it through as I get closer to the center. I bring it up and I rotate the tool down, right? And then when I was starting to turn, it was all books, right? And there was this thing, 45, 45, 45. And I read that paragraph like 100 times and never understood it. I'm an engineer. I know spatially what things are. So if this is 0, 0, 0, this is 45, that's 45, and that's 45. So that's 45, 45, 45. To cut the inside of the bowl with this tool, all I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in there horizontally. We'll push it down and push it across. There's no twisting, lifting, turning. The hardest part is keeping it level. So a lot easier to use the easy wood tools. And for beginners especially, it is by far the easiest thing. So when I teach, I allow people to choose. You want to try traditional tools or easy wood tools? Most of them say they want to try both, and most of them walk out either buying that or saying they're going to buy that later because they don't want to have to do all of the twisting and turning and stuff. So enough on that. So what we're going to do today is we're going to turn this into that goblet. So what I want to do is mark the center on both ends of this. I'm going to show you a couple tricks of the trade, and that is I use my finger and the pencil. I kind of guess where the center is. I lock my finger to the pencil, and then I draw a line. I draw a line this way, a line this way, draw a line that way. And I can judge the center of that.
Did you calibrate your finger this morning?
I did. It's 1/100th of a thousandth out right now. So that's the way I kind of like find the center of everything. I do my pen blanks that way. Ball blanks are a little bit difficult because fingers aren't quite that big and I can't get the angle. But I've marked both ends of that really quick. What I do then is I take a I take a center punch and I just make a mark that's near center on that. So the reason I do that is it makes it easier to put between centers because that's how we're going to start this. What we're going to do is I put a drive spur in here. into the chuck, and I like the ones that you put into the chuck, as opposed to having to do the one that goes into the mortar or the taper there, because I can quickly put this up here, mark the center here. And there we are, ready to go. And it's pretty much. You have power?
It's not plugged in. Put it on the wall. It's got power.
There we go. Got it? Yep. Thank you. It was going to be a very boring demo if it didn't power on. I don't turn well pedaling on a treadmill or treadle. Treadle. Any questions so far? Please feel free to yell out at me. If somebody in the back yells out and I can't hear, somebody just kind of like, grab me.
Which do you want?
He's changed the camera now, but the camera that he had before, I think it's the overhead, and it's oriented the wrong way. That way. It's oriented vertically, and it needs to be horizontal. No. Okay. There you go. Thank you.
So the first thing that I do when I chuck something up is I spin this by hand just to make sure that it doesn't hit the tool rest.
Good.
I'm going to use the larger tool rest because I'm going to do the entire piece. After I get it down and we're going to start doing the cup, I'm going to switch over so I just have a smaller one. I can get it in to the areas that I need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn a tenon on one end. I'm going to turn the tenon on this end so that I can reverse that and put it into my chuck here so that I can then turn the rest of it. I'm going to turn the whole thing around. What I've done is I've taken these calipers and if I make my tenon this big, it'll fit in these jaws. So the faster wood turns, the better it cuts. I don't think this is reading right because it's spinning pretty fast and it says it's 988. So we're gonna go with that. What you want to do is get your tool rest set so that when your carbide tip comes in at a horizontal, that it's in the center axis of the lathe. Detailer to just give it a little bit of a buckle here. Move the chuck with this down here so I get it better. So on on a chuck, there's two important faces that we're trying to do. One is get that dovetail to kind of like match the dovetail in here. The second is you need to have a perfectly flat surface on the top so that the jaws, the front of the jaws, rest on that surface. We're going to put this back in here. We're going to use the center mark that we made over here to push this into the lathe and then tighten it down. I'll show you that in a little bit. So now I'm just gonna make this whole thing round all the way down, and this will go pretty fast. Kind of go a little bit fast. One way you can tell whether this is smooth or not is just put the tool on there and it's bouncing. It means it's got a flat spot on it. The other thing I didn't talk about was when I present this tool in, I was just forcing it straight in, right? I can use the left and the right corner and go down, back and forth and use those as cutting edges as well. That's a little bit less aggressive. I don't get that big chipping and everything. That's pretty round. You don't have to make it perfectly round, but it's just kind of like it still does have a little bit of a flat spot there, but we're going to turn that down a lot more. One of the things that I like to do is I like to put my thumb on top of the tool and my finger behind the tool rest. And that way when I'm going back and forth, right, I'm keeping that at the same distance from the wood. And that gives me a really nice cut. The other thing is the wood is spinning at you. So there is no reason, I see a lot of people when they're first starting do that death white knuckle grip on that tool. There's no reason that tool is going to jump this way, right? If anything, it's going to catch and come up that way. A couple things that I like to do, I like to keep my feet about the shoulder width and then kind of like rock back and forth. On something like this, I would start here, kind of like put myself right in the middle so that I can rock to the left and rock to the right without having myself get completely out of kilter. The other thing that I like to do is what I call a 3-point hole. I like to tuck one side into my fat belly, my hand, this hand here on the front, and tuck that elbow in here. That gives me a nice stable point. One thing that a lot of people will have problems with the small tool is that you can't do that. And so when I'm teaching and people are using this one, I get a lot of this. I see a lot of this as they go across. I'm exaggerating what they're doing, but what happens is one side will kick in and dig into the work more. So if you just kind of come up here and kind of like keep your finger back behind it and rock back and forth like that, you're going to get a superior cut. Any questions? Okay, so we've got that to the point now where we can go ahead and turn that around and put it in the chuck.
That four-legged thing that I gave. The only way to do
I'm going to use a Forstner bit to hollow out the top end of the piece. One thing, so I've got about 1/4 of an inch of a tenon here, and what you want to do is make sure that your wood does not bottom out on the jaws here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in. I'm going to tighten it a little bit just to hold it. Prematurely, one more time. And I want to bring this in. I want to put that into the center of where the hole was on the other end. And that way I can ensure that I'm putting as much pressure this way and that these jaws will be tight. And butt it against that surface there. Always do both sides of your chuck just to make sure you get it nice and tight, especially if you have something this big. Now, a lot of people will put a steady rest here, and that's a good idea. It will help out a lot when you're actually doing when you're trying to do the cup, because there's a lot of stress that we're going to be putting on the end here. Kind of alleviate some of that. I'm going to start with is a Forstner bit. And I'm going to go about to the bottom of the notch here. I'm also going to slow the lathe down. I always hold this when I go to push it in, because it might slip in here. By holding it, it just doesn't lock into the wood. Hopefully. Another tip: I took my chuck, my teeth, and I turned a handle for it, and it hangs on my lathe. There's a piece that hangs out here, and it hangs here, and so it's always within reach. And with a nice big handle, I get a nice big torque on it, and I don't lose it. Typically. Quite the workout there. So what I like to do now is to kind of like give myself an idea of where I have drilled into. So if you go into there, I can go in. So it's a little bit deeper than when I drew the line, or it's not as deep as where I drew the line. That way I know that 1.25 inches or 5/8 of an inch of thickness that I can go down at that point. So now I'm going to start forming the outside of the cup. I like to do the outside before I do the inside, because that's BCC. If you try to do the inside and then do the outside, you're trying to match it because you want it to be the same thickness all the way around, and you might not get the shape that you want. So that's why I try to do the outside first. Of course, I brought all negative rake scrapers. Okay. So we'll go ahead and use the negative scrape. Actually, start off with the square. The shape's going. Do you have a conical? Yeah, it's in the drawer.
That little box on the lathe.
Check the box.
It might be in that little box on the lathe too.
Short answer, yes we will, but it doesn't. I don't know where it's at.
Is it inside the?
Look inside the little
hidden
box.
drawer on the lathe? Secret drawer on the head stock.
There it is.
Sales
It's
stock.
there.
Thank you.
Tom. Takes two Toms.
I used that lathe.
Oh, so you hid it in there.
Yeah.
I know we Should we change the fans to go faster, or is that low for? Not sure. I'm not sure either. I don't know that lathe.
No. Yeah, slide bar.
Yeah.
David,
Oh, finally. Oh. I got it. Perfect, thank you. Okay. So just bringing up the tailstock here with that cone, just in that hole, just to hold it as steady as possible while I go ahead and start to shape the top of it.
Are you still using the square set?
And so what?
Are you still using the square set?
Yeah, I'm using the square one now. What I did was I just squared the top just to make sure that it was square, and I knew exactly where the top of it was because it wasn't cut square, or it wasn't in the top square. So I still have flat spots. I didn't realize. So you can kind of see that I tried to make the cup come in a little bit at the top and then curve down towards the bottom. I'm just trying to get like a real rough shape now. What I'm going to switch over to now is the just flip.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It swings out.
It probably doesn't need to be.
Are you trying to take it off?
No, you don't have to take it off. You can just,
It just swings out of the way.
don't worry about it. I'll just take this off.
slow down.
We'll leave that locked on.
I think it's still hanging on here.
Yeah.
I don't worry about it. Just take it off. Take that off and you get all the extra elbow room. If you leave it in place, it's actually a good place to put your arm. If you're trying to go really deep into
I don't have
something.
no room behind my leg.
So I'm going to now switch over to the other. Get a full rest so I can get in nice and close.
Do I need to call for a rest?
Not yet.
I have a what I did at home with mine is I cut a board so that when I drop this in place, that I put that board right here. And it's got a semicircle cut out of it. I drop it down, and it's already the height that I needed. I never have to worry about it. The only thing is finding that board every time I want. It typically falls out. It's down on the wood shape. So what we're going to do now is just start lightly taking cuts. What I like to do is to look down inside the cup as much as possible. So if you shine a light down inside, when I'm cutting this side, I'm looking at this side. The same way that when I was turning this cup, I wasn't looking at where the tool was making contact with the wood because I can't tell what I'm doing. I watch the other side of the turning. I can see how much wood I'm taking off. I can also look to see, do I have any sharp corners and such. So now we're going to start doing the inside. We're starting to get fairly close. I don't know if you can see the end. Starting to get fairly close to the thickness of the rim that I want. I use my fingers as a caliper. I do this for my pens as well, my bowls. I use my fingers as a caliper to figure out like where it's going thick and where it's not. So the end is probably getting pretty close to where I want it to be, but it doesn't take but like probably that third of an inch in, and it starts to get thicker, where it should be getting a little bit fatter or maybe getting wider there. So I know this is like watching paint dry, but I have to take light cuts because I'm all the way out here. Pushing sideways on this, putting a lot of force on this tenon. So I don't want to break the tenon off, and I don't want to cause the thing to crack either. So let me go back to more hollowing. I feel right down in about here that I'm getting a little bit of thickness here. If I was doing a bowl where I could actually get in there, sometimes I will take a pencil and just mark that spot so I know which part to kind of focus on. But here you just have to kind of like feel. That's much better. It's a little bit thicker at the bottom. I haven't really looked at the bottom yet. I've been mostly focusing my attention up towards the top. And now I'm gonna start to, the bottom of it is square from the Forstner bit. I'm gonna start to hollow that out a little bit, trying not to leave that little nipple that's at the bottom, which is meaning to bring this tool all the way through the center.
Dave, is that particular tool sold as a box tool?
This one here? This one is the part of the hollowing set. So it's got a nice long shank. It allows you to get in there. It's tapered down so you can get into narrow holes and vases and stuff. Sorry. Tapers down here. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time trying to do the bottom because I'm sure that you guys want to see the next step as opposed to watching me stand here and do that. So what I'm going to do is now come up to the very top of the rim, and I've got two sharp corners on there. I want to edge those over. This is another aspect of where I think these tools are much easier to use. Otherwise, you can take your bowl gouge, bring it up on its side, and kind of like do a scraping motion across there. Let's switch over to.
Would you use the beading tip for this?
I would not. You could, but you would have to have this thickness to be what you want it to be.
Does that beading tip only come in one diameter?
No, it has 4 or 5 different diameters. You can go ahead and pass those sheets around, and everybody can kind of look at all the sheets. Any more questions?
Always stop the lathe before you move the.
And you kind of have to because this is so far out that it is going to start vibrating. And we removed the inside of that, so when I went to go do the outside, you heard it kind of like chirping, and that was because this has moved a little bit. So we're going to move the sanding. Sand that. So I just have some 120 grit pattern it. Slowly weighs down somewhat. I might wear a mask to do this, but that prevents me from being able to talk. It doesn't prevent me from talking. It prevents you from hearing me. I like to sand in both directions when I sand. Because if you have any broken fibers off and they break off this way, when you turn the lathe the opposite direction, it stands them back up and they'll sand down better for you. So I started off with 120 grit, and I just moved to 180. The little sheets are better for getting deeper into the your well. I was having problems controlling that little disc getting in the bottom, where I can kind of hold it with my fingers. And again, I'm not going to spend all night sanding. This is 320. So you can see I got a pretty nice surface. I do have some tool marks right here. I don't know if you can see that. Is that visible? Yeah. Can you see those tool marks?
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of left those on there on purpose because if you were to put in a finish, just like a friction finish or whatever, those will stand out because the friction finish doesn't finish in the same way because it's not getting down in there. But when I rub this wax on, first thing you can see is the grain popping on this. I'm going to put a little bit on the inside, but I'm not going to roll it. I'm just sanding it down to where it needs to be. Okay. So what you do is you take a clean paper towel, turn the speed down of the lathe to about 500 or so. And I can feel the grit as I'm kind of buffing that off. Right, and it's leaving wax on the paper towel. So I'm going to grab a different section of the paper towel and then do it again. And I don't see really that much there. Actually, the inside here a little bit. What I want you to see is right here is where those tool marks are. Now, if you look at it, you can see them. But you have to look really hard to see them, where you could see them very easily before. And like I said, if I were just to put a friction finish on there, those then stand out, they highlight. And so we've done a couple different things here, right? We've got all of our digs and dents and everything, all the same color. And I've now sanded this up to about 1200 grit with that wax. So now that I've done this, and we want to do this in sections because as we start to turn our stem, this part out here you can't go back to. So whatever you're going to do to finish that, you need to do it here now, right? What you can do afterwards is put a wipe on poly or something that you're not going to put it on. But if you're going to do a friction finish and you turn the stem, it will just snap for you. Okay. So I'm now going to turn over this tool here.
If you were to put another coat of wax on, would that take those marks out 100%?
No, you would have to sand these out. These were fairly deep tool marks that I just left in there. so that the bucket can only show you that. And they were caused by this not being round anymore, and me putting the tool up and it was hitting on one side. So, oh, yes, I do. Thank you. So just putting this cone in place, just putting a little bit of pressure on it, not a lot of pressure, just to hold this so that it doesn't vibrate. I use this at home to go into the cup on that one. Just put a paper towel here. Makes a lot of noise like a fan, but it holds the end of this steady. So I'm just going to start to remove some of the bulk here. I'm going to turn the speed back up. Yeah, I like to work with about 2 to 3 inch segments of this as I go along. Now, continue to remove some of the bottom of the bowl here, but I want to give myself some leeway on the other side to use the detail tool. If you noticed, when I went in, I wanted to try to keep as little pressure going horizontally so that I didn't crack this or anything. So I was rocking this whole back and forth to use the corners to kind of like dig in and go back and forth, as opposed to just pushing straight in all the way. because of the tip of this being so small and rounded, I can put a fairly good amount of pressure on there and not put a lot of stress on the whole piece. What I want to try to do now is just sand the bottom part. Blend it in a little bit because it is a little bit of wobble there. As you do this, one of the things that I do is listen to the wood, because the wood's talking to you the whole time. So, like if I hear a pitch change in the wood, I look to see if I have a crack of anything. And then if it squeals, like it did when I was using that tool there, I was probably catching too much of the wing of that tool, and it was causing a little bit of stress. When you select your wood for your goblet, one of the things that you want to make sure is that it doesn't have any knots in it. It's okay if there's a knot up here in the cup, but if you have any knots down in here, it could end up in the middle of your method called a very finish. Round tool gives me a very easy way to get a nice transition between the bottom and the stem. Would help if I pull the sleeve back up. When you turn your stem is going to look much smaller here when you take it off and you put it up like that. You got a fairly good size here. I'm gonna continue to taper that down and transition right into that. Again, I'm using my fingers to kind of give myself a feel to figure out am I the same diameter all the way down. I do want to show you how to put a burn mark in this. Use a skew just to make this a little bit deeper here. So I just have a piece of craft wire between two pencils. I just hold it down there until it gets nice and hot. I can start to smell it a little bit. And that gives it a little bit of just something to look at as you're looking at the whole piece. When I sand these, I pinch don't grab it and pull because you're going to put a lot of stress on the wood. But if you pinch it, you're not putting any. You're putting a little bit of stress on there, but not too much. How are we doing on time?
It's about an hour, well, it's 20 after 8.
What time you want to finish?
How much longer do you think you've got?
I can make this the bottom of the goblet.
Okay, yeah, okay. A short goblet. Make that, short goblet.
Yeah. Okay. You guys got the idea.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Dave,
Yes.
what is a functional diameter of that stem? What's a realistic so that it'll last and be functional?
So I usually do them a little bit, about a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit thinner. If I'm doing them for ornamental, I'll drop them down to about 1/8 of an inch.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing that I do, most of my goblets are wedding goblets. And I'll do what is called an Irish or a Celtic goblet, which means that what I'll do is I'll turn 2 rings here, right? And then those rings will be loose here. I break one of them, and then I put that inside the other one. Don't tell anybody, right? So that it ends up like this around there, right? And that symbolizes the 2 rings intertwined and everything. And everybody is like, "Oh my God, how did you do that? That's awesome!" And I don't tell anybody. Except for you guys.
That is pretty.
And again,
There's about 1.5 inches.
every time you get to a certain point, every 2 inches or so, you want to put the finish on that you're going to finish with. So I'm going to put the Yorkshire grit on here, my finish, and then we're going to work on the foot for this.
Yeah.
That looks about right. Another quarter inch, that'll be it.
So that 500. And what I do, and I didn't do here, just to save time, is I usually sand a little bit up into the previous one, and a little bit further with the next grid, and a little bit further with the next grid, just to kind of blend them in really well. But my goal here is to teach you guys how to kind of like do the whole thing, and not to spend all day sanding. Okay, so what I like to do on the bottom of mine is I like it to be like to curve down a little bit from this point, and I like there's just a little bit of a taper here coming down the side, and then I round the bottom off as well. I like the way it looks. It makes it look like it's a little bit floating on there as you look, with all the curves going underneath. I typically make my base just slightly smaller than the diameter here, and I don't measure it. I just eyeball it. Another thing that I'll tell you guys to do when you're out there turning anything, bowls or whatever, is to step back from your work and look at it and critique it and see, like, is there anything that I should do? And critique of my own right here. There's an edge, and if I wasn't doing a demo, I would take a lot of time and take that out so that it's a curved smooth all the way around. But
Bases over there. Too far cowboy. Yeah.
Sell that
there was just a little bit of tear out there I was trying to get rid of. going back and touching that up because with the shift it wasn't round anymore. A little bit of sandpaper on here. Anybody have any questions while I'm boring you with sanding?
Are there any woods that carbide is particularly suited for, or is it pretty much the same as traditional?
So the harder the wood, the better they perform. So I don't know if you've ever done Purple Heart, but with Purple Heart, I spend as much time turning as I do sharpening my tools because it's so hard. And the Easy Wood tools, you saw the streamers coming off of this. That's what I get off of my Purple Heart, and I don't have to sharpen. Now, I'll tell you that when I first started turning, I didn't have a sharpening system. It was the one thing that I recommend people get. If you're not going to go with Easy Wood tools, that sharpening system should be one of your first purchases. Because I went 2 years by trying to sharpen by hand, and I got exactly 128,000 different facets on my bowl gouges as I was trying to bring them all the way around and get an Ellsworth grind on it. And I sharpen my bowl gouge once every bowl, once every other bowl. Once I get that, I got a one-way sharpening system, the Varigrind, and I sharpen my bowl gouge probably 3 times on the outside with that last sharpening right before I do my final cut, and then on the inside 3 times, and like the 1 time right before I do my final cut as well. I know a lot of people will use like a really big, thick scraper to get the bottom of your bowl nice and smooth or whatever. Easy Wood tools are so much easier to do it with. You don't have to worry about sharpening that thing. When you put that burr on that tool, it probably lasts a couple hundredths of a second as you put it into the wood, depending on the hardness of the wood. So just a couple of thoughts. I am going to disengage this thing. Because I don't want to free this up and this be trapped in here, because what will happen is this will go cocked in here, the side will hit here, and this shaft will shatter. The other thing that I'm going to do that I almost forgot is you need to put your finish on before you take it off, because it's hard to get it to spin fast enough to get this stuff off.
Is there a reason you don't go down to the white?
To the what?
So Yorkshire Grit has the brown and the white. Is there a reason you stop at the brown?
It goes to 12,000. I don't know how much you sand, but 12,000 is good enough for me.
1,200?
1,200, yeah. Sorry, not 12,000. 1,200. So yeah, that's good enough for me.
Have delicate fingers, I guess.
Yeah, so you can do that afterwards. I just don't see.
It just gives it a little more luster, I think.
It does, and a lot of times I'll do that after I finish it. So I'll put a finish on it and then come back to it. I always put it on the acrylic stuff. I always go with that microacrylic.
You use that after finish is on to smooth the finish up too?
Yes.
Polish finish?
Yep. I don't remember what the grit is on that stuff, but it's really, really fine. Now the thing is, to get this to be the center, you're going to have to drop the tool rest. So, and again, with a traditional tool, you're going to bring it in here, and as you come in, lift that to the center. With this, we're just going to kind of push it in. Just giving myself a clearance here. So if you don't feel comfortable taking it all the way off, don't. You take it down to a certain point that you're just going to sand the rest of it off of, and then take a saw and just bring it in here and saw the rest of it off. The other thing, I don't know if it was obvious, was bringing that in at just a slight angle so that this will sit flat, except for the nub that I have to sand off on the bottom. So go ahead and pass this around so you guys can all see this. Yeah, I would have also rounded that corner and sanded it a little bit at the bottom.
Dave?
Yes.
The Easy Tall cutter bits, will they fit other handles from other manufacturers?
I don't know. I've never tried it on somebody else's tools. They are marked. Each one of them is marked which camera's active. So each one of them has a size written on the handle right here. So this one says CI4, and this is a CI3. So if you go to the store, you go to Easy Wood Carbide Cutters, and then you look for the number that you're looking for, CI1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you pick whether you want the square cutter, or I don't know if I pass this one around. This is the radius 2 one, so you don't have the corners on it, and it's a negative rake. I'll go ahead and pass this around because I think I left it out in the first set.
Does Easy Wood sell a cutter that is, I'll call it a cup grind? You know, instead of being flat, it has like a, I don't want to say a groove, but
Like a lip around.
You mean it goes down? Yeah. No, I think that's Hunter Tools that has that.
I mean, third party carbide sellers make them. I just didn't know if Easy Wood had them.
No, I have not seen that.
That's all right.
I thought you made a great recovery when you start having problems. That was very nicely done. I have an Easy Wood with a circular cutting tool, and I can take that off and use a diamond card to sharpen it, making sure that I do the sharpening, moving it into figure 8. It's been very successful. It's just great because of the shaft for cleaning out boxes. I always use it when I'm making a box. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I don't know. Any more questions for David?
Hey, this is Ken. This is Ken. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I use Easy Wood tools a lot of times too, and it's one of the things I have trouble with is the small set screw size on the screws. Do you have any advice on how I could overcome? Sometimes it gets rusted in or anything like that. Any advice on that?
Every time you buy a new cutter, it comes with a new screw. So they recommend that you always replace the screw when you replace the tip. So don't hold back on that. The other thing is every tool that you buy has the Allen wrench in it. And what I did was I just turned a little handle, drilled a hole in it, and then glued this piece in here because that Allen wrench is so hard to find once you dropped it. So, this I can find in the shavings fairly easily.
They usually come with a star wrench, and they usually strip out. Oh yeah.
These are Allen, they're not stars. These are Allens and not stars.
Allens? Okay.
Yep.
I had that problem with carbide tools holders for a long time. You usually have to buy extra wrenches.
Yeah, so
and screws because the screws will strip out on it.
So what they recommend is you tighten it, but not over tighten it. So a lot of people will over tighten it, and that's the number one thing that people have to have recovered is that set screw taken back out because they've over tightened it, can't get it back out. So
okay. Well, thank you, David. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Straight to show and tell. Okay, who's first?
Is there anybody out there?
Is there anybody on Zoom?
Jim. Jim Bowman.
Jim Bowman. You're on, Jim.
Hope your mic's not on.
You got your mutes on.
Yeah, believe it or not, Jim shut me up, I guess. Those of you who are on Thursday Zoom know that we're having Barbara Deal. And, I'm going queen of multi-axis turning. And so I've been doing some turning. I have one I want to show you. It's a learning process, I'll tell you. I mean, let me go quick to this and can you see it? This is off of my Facebook page. Yeah. Maybe I should have brought it off a phone. That is my first successful one, even so it's not perfect. But yeah, it was fun, and now I'm working on something else that's driving me crazy, trying to figure all the angles out. So, this was an idea stolen from Jim Duxbury. He presented an article in the British woodturning magazine a while back using his duck's chuck. And this is a parallel axis turning. So, yeah.
Nice job, Jim.
Thank you.
Very good.
Okay. Barry, do you want to talk about, so Barry's got a show and tell, but he's also got some comments about the Ikebana project.
Really just an update on the Ikebana. You all got some copies of possible dimension limits on these things. I went ahead and bought a 2 1/4 Forstner bit just because 2 1/8 is what the standard upper limit is on a set when you get it. And 2 1/4 happens to work out exactly for these inserts. Now, I'm talking blindly here. Are you all familiar, at least the older people? The longer members are familiar with, there's a woman from in the Harrisburg Club, or she's going to be in the Harrisburg Club. Her late husband was a corneal surgeon. And in memory of him, she wants to distribute I think upwards of over 140. And she has asked our club and Susquehanna Club to make the containers, the vessels, if you will. I made just experimenting with the profile look of one that has a high shoulder, more bowl-like, and one that is much more stable. This one here, the feathering on the bottom actually is the highlight of the whole thing, and I didn't even see that until it was all done. But there it is. But anyhow, you just
To the camera back.
That looks pretty neat on the other side.
yeah.
It's not president anymore.
I timed making this one today.
Aren't
Oh,
you
I'm
supposed to
sorry.
go on the Lazy Susan? It seems like only one president ago we were all yelled at.
It's like a horseshoe crab on the bottom.
So I was supposed to have about 50 of these for tonight, and she didn't get them yet. So, and she is Miriam Rosenwasser from Susquehanna, but she's ordering these in very large quantity and getting a good price on them, and they exactly fit in a 2 1/4 hole. This one here was not drilled at 2 1/4, it was drilled at something smaller and then just worked out. And because of the taper, you don't really have to have it 2 1/4 all the way down, just the last, 2 1/8, and then just trim it up a little bit so you get a good fit. And these things are quite pricey. When she's buying them all, she's buying everything except for the wood. And the idea is it makes a clean presentation for this Japanese art, Ikebana, Ikebana.
Is that for burning something?
I'm sorry?
Is that for burning something?
Sticking
For
flowers.
flower arranging.
Right. This is a flower frog.
Oh.
We stick, artfully placed twigs and
Feng shui.
live flowers, and water goes in this thing. The reason why we wanted to have a metal insert, she was expecting at first that we would do an epoxy sleeve in there, and I couldn't see how to do it that it would be actually watertight. Eventually those things kind of leak. And so she's buying all this stuff here, going to deliver it to us. And the idea is for next meeting, anybody who is going to sign up to make one or more, I'll provide them with the cups, because it is important that it sits right down on its rim.
Okay.
And that's 2 1/4, Barry?
I'm sorry?
2 1/4? 2 1/2.
That bore is 2 1/4. But like I say, you can easily work your way up to it so it's an exact fit just by enlarging it.
When do you need them, Barry? When do you need them? For next meeting?
She actually wanted to get some shipped out tonight, this month, but I told her since we don't have the cups yet, that couldn't happen. So next month, this one here I made honestly in under an hour, start to finish. But I did already have it bandsawed round, and it was just a matter of woodworm and through the recess in the bottom. We took a piece of maple trunk that I found at the compost facility, and it was all worm-eaten and spalted, and it was a pretty good-looking piece of wood. And it's a good way to use up small scraps of wood that are only like 1.5 inches thick and 5.5 inches in diameter. The next month, I'll get the cups to anybody who agrees to make one or more.
Dazzle. No.
Razzle, dazzle.
No. These count as one.
There's a 3 count minimum.
No, these
maximum,
count
I
as
think.
one. This is one.
Okay. Just checking. So I know that new president lets them slide.
He lets everything go. Not like the old guy.
He was tough, wasn't he?
He was tough. Call these my 3 bear. I'm Mike. I don't have my hat. You may not recognize me. It's a little cold for a straw hat.
These are my three bears, I call them, because there's something right and something wrong with each one of them. And if you mash them all together, you'd have one good turning. You know, this one, the bottom's too fat. This one, the bottom's too skinny. I actually have lead shot in here so it doesn't fall over. That's why the towel was in the top. So if anybody wanted to look at the bottom, they could. But I didn't want to lose my shot.
Nobody would know that unless you told them
What's that?
that there was something wrong with them.
Well, it's kind of obvious. I mean, you know, like, you know, this one, the painting's kind of okay. This one's a little better, but this one, if it had a brighter light, it actually winks at you if you turn it around. I really like the coloring on this one. And
So how'd you make those decorations, Mike?
I carved them with a router.
Wow.
So that's for those. Oh, these two are elm, and the other one's not elm, beech, from that famous beech tree. That's a long story, so we'll save that for another.
How did you do the color on that?
It's mica powder. If Andre ever shows up to another meeting, and I brought this in. This is a multi-axis turning. There's no carving on this. It's a really nice piece of wood. I make these with 8 spines or petals or ribs around, and I figured, you know what? 7's got to be one easier than 8, so I made this one with 7. Plus, it's a prime number.
Was it one easier?
It would have been, but I messed up my math.
6.5.
And I didn't make it tall enough for as big a round.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm turning on the fly, trying to design as I'm turning. And I finally got it done, and it had all these petals around, just like I wanted. And I put it out on the table, and I go, boy, that really sucks. What can we do with that? So trying to come up with ideas. It's not finished. It still needs to be sanded and everything, and I'm looking for suggestions. Thomas says maybe these ribs need to be hollowed down further. I thought, what if I came up from the bottom so they were like almost separate and just had one connection point to a bowl inside? Or I could leave it like it is. It kind of looks like something's opening up. Or maybe a trap ready to get somebody.
Use it as your frisbee in July. No
I
one will wanna
could
go.
do that. I would make a good frisbee. But the biggest test of all, it works.
Success.
And the other thing, that's for if you have friends coming over you like. If you got friends you don't like, you can use the other end. That one we'll put in the pocket.
David for later.
It also looks kind of neat that way. That was another suggestion Thomas says. Just start over and make a different one where it's hollowed from the top. It's like, no.
Conversation piece.
You can make it into an ikebana.
I could. Ooh, yeah.
Mike, you have to add lights.
I could. Oh, my God.
Light up M&M.
I could put a light in the top of each one of these. That would be awesome. Thank you, Barry.
Get one of those curved drills so you can follow the.
There you go.
You just use those electromagnetic
And that's what I brought. Sorry about the M&Ms on the floor.
and in your pocket
They're in the pocket for the way home.
where it's sure to melt. Melts in your hands, not in your pocket.
How'd you get the legs on there in between?
The legs in between?
Yeah, in between the legs.
They're turned with it's like this, it looks like the turning. They're just ribs that go around the bowl.
Okay.
And then I jam chucked it and cut it in this way, between the bowl and the outside edge.
Pretty cool.
Thank you. So that's my multi-axis turning.
Nice.
Interesting.
How deep are these? Do they go all the way in?
Somebody else? There's more bowls over here.
They don't go all the way in, or they fall off. Yeah, they don't go all the way in. They went all the way in, they fall off.
I didn't know about the 3 limits, so so I guess I'm in trouble. I don't know. For Christmas, I made bowls for my family. It's from a tree that we had in the backyard. that they climbed on and ate the cherries off of. So it's a cherry bowl, and they all got one. This is the smallest of them. I based it off the hanging chain. So you'll see the shape is, try to get that about right. Yep. It's a little fat, but it's not too bad that way. The other ones were better than this one. So I made a series of those for Christmas. And then I had a really deep one that I just decided to turn as it is. And it came out. I'm pleased with it. My wife likes it, so she's happy, I'm happy, so I'm good.
Were these turned green?
No, these have been sitting around for twice turned. The first turn was done about 3 years ago. So they've been sitting around for a long time. And you can see the inside there.
Nice.
It's got some nice figure in it.
Were they after the first turn?
I'm sorry?
How thick was the wood after the first turn?
It really was 10% or a little bit more than 10% of the diameter. So for this one, it was a good 3/4 of an inch or so. This one was not quite as thick. Okay. A friend of ours gave me some sweet gum. So I turned, this is the first piece of the sweet gum I turned. They gave it to me just a couple years ago. I twice turned this one also. This one had some spalting happen to it, so I was very pleased with that shape and design that came out of that. So I'll be very happy to give it back to him. I made this very specifically so you can put your M&Ms or whatever and hold the bowl just like this. Try to make it very, very comfortable in the hand with a little bit of, I don't know if you can see that in there, but it's actually uncut just slightly enough that you can get your thumb in there and just hold that very comfortably.
Makes it easy to pour the M&Ms right into your mouth.
That's right, or your pocket, because that's what I'm known for. My grandchildren all picked out a piece of wood that they wanted me to do a bowl for. Well, this one, my one daughter, which is the first one of the year, I'm making presents for their birthday, I turned it 2 years ago, and I made a total mess out of it. But she loved it, so I had to salvage it somehow. So I did. This is what I came up with. It was a little bit taller. It was fatter. It was real thin in some spots and real fat in other spots. So I came up with this design. I don't know if you can tell. It's just I put a slight OG in the side just to break up the line on the side, and I tried to give it a little more pleasing and tall feel to give it a taller look than what it really is. It's actually it's more wide. It's wider than what it is tall, which is, to me, it's kind of an optical illusion because of that, of the foot. Okay, so it's just a little bit of play there. So in February, when it's her birthday, which I have the date already set for it and ready for her, so that'll go to her. And then I have 5 other ones to do. Thank you.
If anybody's interested in a coring system, I have one for sale. This one, I kind of outgrew this one. I have the bigger size of this one on order. That one has 3 blades on it. This is a bowl saver by Woodcut Tools. I've had it for 2 or 3 years, and it has done really well for me. It's just, I now have an 18-inch lathe, and I know I have some more of this stuff coming up that I want to be able to get bigger cores out of. And so, if you're interested in a coring system, by all means, just
Start the bidding now at 5.
yeah, sure. Do we have an auctioneer in the house? And then I grabbed this guy on my way out. That is actually, this is a core out of a bigger bowl, but the mother bowl, she's been causing some problems, but she's almost done, but didn't get it done for tonight. But maple burl that I harvested, a friend of mine who is a tree guy, took this tree down. It was one of those maple trees that just the trunk is just a series of lumps and ugly beauty inside that. So he let me come in and just dissect that log, and I got a whole bunch of this stuff. So, but they're really tight. It's a really tight burl.
Is that a resin?
That is a Waterlox finish on there.
That's waterlock.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
So
How many coats of waterlocks is on there?
3, I think. Yeah.
Same
Yeah.
amount in between?
I buff it with the Beal buffing system and Triple E. Buff it before each coat. After the third coat, there's nothing done to it after the third coat.
You buff it between the coats.
Yeah, before each coat. Sand it to either 400 or 600 grit, and then buff it with the Triple E, and like I said, buff it before each coat. Buff it and then wipe it off with denatured alcohol to get any junk off from the Triple E.
You get various sizes with that, or just get one size?
This guy has the 2 different knives on it. You loosen these 2 screws, take this knife out and flip this one over for the smaller bolt. I think this one's 13 inches in diameter. I think this is 13.
Okay.
I think is about the maximum.
Oh, so you can get
size.
decent size out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You can move it back too, right? So you can move it back away from the wood too. So you
as
can
far as the depth, yeah. This hooks into the banjo, and then this guy goes in the tailstock, and then just feed it through. So, and with this bowl, I guess kind of like what Bill said about the slight undercut in the rim. I started doing that a while ago, and yeah, I agree. It's your thumb just hooks right in there. We'll pick it up. So, anyway, if you're interested, let me know.
Do you have a price or?
I know new right now they're $600 on Rockler from Rockler. So, but I've had this one 2 or 3 years. I probably let it go for $350.
What size post is it?
1 inch. Yeah, and what is that? The number 2, the standard number 2 Morris taper.
So my wife found a piece of wood in the firewood pile, and it basically looked like this. And she said, "Can I turn it?" So I did. It was the hardest piece of wood that I've ever turned, I will say. And it was so hard, and my shop was so cold that I wasn't spending any more time than I needed to in it. So I drilled it instead of trying to turn, hollow it. I turned it into a big bud vase, basically. And I had this laying around, and I couldn't bear to get rid of this. And she goes, "Well, why don't you make it a base?" So there they are. And then this was an experiment that not quite as challenging as Mike's, but it's a 4-legged ball. It was square. It's very rough, hot, down in this armpits or whatever you want to call it. I had a terrible tear out on the trailing edge of each of these legs, so bad that I basically had to freehand with a Dremel these arcs because the turned opening was just horrendous. The only thing I really liked about it is the bead. And it's fairly heavy because, like I said, I got tired of working on it, so I didn't worry about how thin it was. But it's interesting from a distance, I guess I'll say that.
What kind of wood is the hard wood?
Doug and Angelo and I were talking, we think it's an oak burl. Part of an oak burl. Because you see the grain, it's every direction. I mean, you can see, it's just a lot of weird stuff going on, especially if you look at the bottom of this. The grain is all over the place in parts of it.
Yeah.
Hey, John,
Yes.
how'd you make the bead on your, what did you use to cut the bead?
I just did it with I think, a bowl gouge.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I mean, I accentuated it with probably one of the easy wood, the really fine detail, or a point tool. I don't know if it was easy wood or another point tool, just to get a more accentuated at the junction between this and this. But, so if I make another one, I'll know what not to do. Hopefully, figure out what to do. But that was then.
It's not a multi-axis turning though, right?
No. It was just a pain in the neck turning.
That's pretty neat.
Alright. So some of y'all know I'm in the middle of remodeling my bathroom. So, of course, I built the cabinets, did a river table as the night light for the vanity top, epoxy walls, all that. The other day I said to my wife, I said, come on, let's go over and pick out a toilet paper holder. And she's like, well, why don't you just turn something? So I did. You know, you pick up a toilet paper roller holder thing, you know, is what, maybe $10? Yeah, no. It took me all frickin' day to figure out what I was doing and do the turnings. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Spring loaded.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's spring loaded, so we can change it. So just little face grain, end grain, and of course and then I had to make the little screw cover knobbies.
Oh yeah.
So that was how I spent my Sunday, making a toilet paper holder. So. Yeah. But what I'd have to charge for the sucker. And then tomorrow I'm going up to the farm show to do the demo with Susquehanna. So it'll be, I guess it's Ron Sheehan and I will be up there turning and doing whatever. So I figured I might as well figure out, make the little snowmen and the little tops. I haven't turned a top in a long time, and it does work, so I kind of remember how to do it. And the little snowmen, just for fun. And then I have a bunch of little scrappy woods, so I figured out that I can, turn those bowls in about 10 minutes. These little guys, they're nothing super fancy. Although I did put a little texture on this guy just because it was boring looking. But looking forward to harassing public tomorrow. So.
Even if be a lot of them there.
What's that?
Even if we don't count the plugs, that was 5 objects.
Okay. But it was a grouping.
Well, the toilet paper and the plug was grouping. I'll give you that.
So, yeah.
I appreciate that we've had a few folks that came up with more than 3. I do have 3 small bowls. I've not had a whole lot of time in the workshop lately, but yeah, so just 3 little ones here. The interesting thing about this, it started like something like that. Reuse it, we get scrap stuff in, and I might be able to do something with that.
I thought you caught that bed up that you did those.
I worked on that. Yeah, that's true. Well, no. I didn't cut the bed off. but the other piece that I brought along for commiseration.
Everybody has one of those.
You don't have one quite like this.
No.
This was a piece of cypress that I started to turn probably 8-9 months ago, and it developed a crack. And I thought, I just worked at that that'd be a nice thing to put a butterfly in.
Yeah.
Well, how do you put a butterfly in a bowl? And, you know, I know they have all kind of templates and router guides and so on, but, well, number one, I'm cheap. And number two, I wasn't quite sure how you would actually get that flat enough to use a router guide on it. So, started with making my own little template. Down lower, okay, make my own little template. Cut the butterfly out of walnut. And then use the template on here to mark it. And with some drills and the Dremel tool. And then finally a file. I got all that in. Well, it had, you know, in 8-9 months' time, it wasn't round anymore. So I started turning it, and yeah, I had this wonderful explosion. Fortunately, I was not in the line of fire. And
Opportunity for more butterflies. Two, I would suggest at least two.
at least 2.
Maybe 3.
Yeah, well, and that's the whole, you know, I don't think I want to try and glue all that back together.
Break it all up and put it in some epoxy.
There you go. Turn it again. Anyway.
Put lights on
Alan. Hey,
Hello.
Alan.
Yes, Jim.
That's what they make CA glue for. Good thick CA glue.
It's going to take a lot of CA glue on that one. Anyway. But, you know, somebody might have a better idea on how to do butterflies, but that's how I did mine.
I think I've seen people hot glue the template on the bowl, and then you can do your cut.
Use splines behind the wings of the flat template.
Okay.
So put it as flat as you can, then put wings behind it, hot glue them all in so it's stable, and then you can just route it out. Use a router.
Okay. Okay.
But I like the image of you sitting there filing it and doing like old school, you know, like
It drove my
workmanship.
wife nuts because it was putting up this loud
Squeeze.
yeah. Does anybody else have any show and tell? So before I forget, Matt sent out, did you just send it to me? Okay, so I sent it to Tom. So Tom's going to distribute the monthly challenges in time. Maybe
To read it off for next month.
I don't know if I printed it out.
Oh, I thought you had. I can take
What's
this.
next month?
Round and round. I just declared it.
Okay, January, Happy New Year. February is a fantasy item. Fantasy item, turn something inspired by a fantasy. Like a magic. I didn't make up this list.
You can't put that on Zoom.
Is there a rating limit? Yeah.
My lay's too small. Anyway, March is metallics. Use metals, gilding, or other metal-like finishes. I'll email it.
Okay. So thanks, Matt. So just a couple other things that I'm looking forward to doing this year with other folks. Just updating the tool inventory we have for each lathe, having a list that lives with each lathe to make sure that we have the basic tools we need in all of the pieces of equipment in the shop, and then what we have for general use. And also at some point pretty soon, we have a lot of new members. I'd like to kind of create or rekindle some of the safe turning practices so that people, and on a Saturday, we have new turners come here all the time and they get coached, but I'd like to have something a little bit more formal, at least sometime in the near future at a workshop to go over safe turning practices. I'm sure people have been here when somebody will turn on the jet in the back and they'll spin a big blanket like 2,000 without checking to see where the belts are and things like that. So I'd like to rekindle some safe turning practices. And that's what I have for tonight.
There's a bowl core for sale if the shop needs a.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought some end grain turning blanks. They're on the tables there. They're for turning end grain bowls, open shop. I'll take in a number of different hollowing tools to hollow end grain. I'll go through the procedure for using each of the tools, and anybody who's there that wants to try them is welcome to use them. I'll have everything but easy wood tools.
When will that be?
18th,
At the open shop?
Oh, the open shop.
the 18th, 2 weeks, a week from Saturday.
So if John brings his easy wood tools that are dull,
I need some new carbide.
Carbide?
Yeah.
Can you email me that? Then I'll get it out when I send out the reminder for the open shop.
Thank you.
Hey, John, I got a question for the guys.
Okay.
Friend of mine is a relative of Jake Brubaker, the turner that was well known in the Lancaster area. She got handed, she's in the family line, she got handed a couple of his mugs that had pewter bands on them, but some are missing and one's really loose. Anybody know how he might have attached a pewter band? He had a groove cut in the side of the mugs, and I don't know what happened. She just said they were missing, and her daughter wanted to have them done, and she said, "Jim, you know anybody who knows how to put a pewter on?" I said, "See,
Doug would.
see a jeweler." What?
Doug Reeser.
Doug Reeser spins metal. He would do it. There's also a guy in the Bucks County group, Dennis Few. He would do it. So if she wanted to provide them with the bowls, they'd spin the metal on it for her.
I don't understand how you can possibly do that because the groove is smaller. You know, how do you fit the metal down over the mug wood? Okay.
That's for those metal spinners to figure out. They do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'll get a hold of Doug because I didn't think about it. So, thank you.
Does anybody else have any business questions, comments? If not, we'll see you hopefully at Open Shop on the 18th.